My high-rise apartment on the 4th floor was supposed to be a safe haven, but instead, it became a vertical prison where a charred, faceless entity clawed at my window glass every single night while screaming that the fire was consuming it. To understand how I ended up trapped in this relentless cycle of terror, we have to go back to the freezing winter night when I first rented this place to escape the suffocating memories of my family's tragic death. The first 3 weeks were entirely peaceful, but on a stormy Tuesday, a wet, heavy thud against my bedroom window woke me up at exactly 3 in the morning. I flipped on my flashlight and pointed it at the glass, gasping when I saw a pair of raw, blistered hands pressed flat against the outside of the pane. There is no balcony outside that room, yet this figure stood there, its skin peeling away in blackened layers as it frantically beat its fists against the frame. I scrambled backward onto my bed, my heart hammering against my ribs as a distorted, bubbling voice seeped through the sealed glass, begging me to open up because the heat was melting its flesh. For hours, I sat paralyzed under my blankets while the rhythmic pounding grew louder, only stopping when the first rays of morning light finally hit the glass and the figure vanished into thin air. The next day, I examined the window from the inside, finding no physical marks, which only drove me to purchase heavy-duty locks and thick, black blackout curtains to block out the street lamps. That night, the pounding returned with double the intensity, and this time, the entity began moving from the bedroom window to the kitchen window, creating a frantic, echoing chase inside my own home. I ran from room to room, sliding bolts into place and hammering wooden boards across the frames, but the muffled screams of its burning let us out, followed me through the plaster walls. By the second week, the physical exhaustion was taking a heavy toll, and I began to see the distorted, melting faces of my deceased husband and daughter superimposed over the blackened figure outside. The entity started using heavy rocks or metal tools to strike the glass, causing visible micro cracks that made me fear the entire structure was about to collapse inward. I stopped sleeping entirely, spending my nights pacing the hallway with a heavy iron fire poker in my hands, waiting for the inevitable moment the barrier would shatter. Every time I tried to call a repairman or look outside during the day, the windows looked perfectly intact, which made me realize I was the only one who could hear the constant, agonizing scraping. The terror reached a fever pitch when the entity began mimicking the exact, high-pitched screams my daughter made during her final moments, forcing me to cover my ears and scream at the top of my lungs to drown out the noise. I knew I couldn't survive another night of this psychological torture, so I decided that the next time the figure appeared, I would smash the glass myself and confront the monster that was stealing my sanity. On a night when the rain was pouring in deafening sheets, the frantic pounding started at the main balcony door, and the screams of my family grew so realistic that I could actually smell the acrid scent of burning plastic and flesh in my living room. I gripped the iron poker with both hands, walked slowly toward the glass door, and watched the blistered, wet silhouette beat its head against the pane in a desperate bid to get inside. With a final, desperate burst of adrenaline, I swung the iron poker forward, shattering the double-paned glass into thousands of glittering shards that rained down onto the wet concrete below. The freezing wind and rain rushed into my face, and in that split second of impact, the violent shaking of the glass seemed to break a thick, heavy fog that had clouded my brain for months. There was no charred monster standing on the ledge, nor was there any platform beneath my feet, because I was actually standing on the very edge of my open balcony railing. The sudden rush of reality hit me like a physical blow as my foot slipped on the wet metal, and my body began to tip forward into the empty, dark space of the fourth floor drop. As I fell through the air, my entire life flashed before my eyes, and the locked compartment of my memory finally burst open to reveal the real tragedy I had been running from. I remembered the night of the house fire a year ago, when the smoke had filled the hallway, and I had panicked, running out of the master bedroom and slamming the heavy safety door behind me to keep the smoke out. In my absolute, blind terror to save my own skin, I had locked that deadbolt from the outside, trapping my husband and daughter inside the burning room while I escaped into the front yard. My mind could not live with the monstrous truth of what I had done, so it had built this elaborate, terrifying hallucination of a locked-out monster to punish me every single night for locking them in. I realized with absolute horror that the entity begging to be let in was the physical manifestation of my own guilt, forcing me to feel the same helpless panic my family felt before they died. The pavement rushed up to meet me, and in those final microseconds of consciousness, the terrifying illusion was completely gone, leaving only the cold, hard weight of my own unforgivable cowardice. My body hit the ground with a sickening impact, ending the relentless torment of the closed windows, but leaving my soul to face the ultimate judgment for the lives I had stolen. One last question: if you were in her place at that moment, would you have done the same? Be honest. What does her choice deserve out of 10? Subscribe now. The best story is coming next.